Great. I sent Dave a document last night with a high-level outline of what I do every day, and I want to show you this picture to begin with and ask you to think about yourself as a trader. What do you see, the old hag or the beautiful woman? And it all depends on how you naturally tend to see various pictures. Do you look at the mountain range or the mountaintop? And when you see someone's profile, do you only focus on the tip of their nose? And it's big picture as opposed to a smaller picture. Or as airline pilots experience, it's flying from nonstop Atlanta to San Francisco. They have to know where the airport is that they're going to. They're not going to fly from airport to airport to airport to airport. They want to make one long trip, but they have to get up to a cruising altitude in order to arrive at their destination. So they also have to take off and land. So they have to become very adept at looking at several different views, the 50,000 foot view, the 10,000 foot view, and higher. So I start with this picture to help illustrate that. Do you see an old hag or a beautiful woman? And depending on how you tend to focus, you will see the old hag with the tip of her nose, her mouth, and a protruding chin. If you zoom out a little bit for a larger view, you can see the beautiful woman, and this is a profile shot, 3/4 view over her shoulder with her eye, the side of her chin, and then her neckline and a choker necklace. So it's just something to think about. The concept behind the Fib forecast projection levels is a name that I coined based on watching some videos by Dean Malone. Dean Malone is a broker with Compass FX, and from what I've gathered about most Forex traders is they tend to use 4-hour charts as our bigger picture view. It's to give them the location of the San Francisco airport, for instance. I've included this document, several videos that you can watch. The link to the video library is included here, and I think David has posted this on his share drive. But when you look at the list of videos, you will see two sections that stand out regarding the Fib projection levels. The first section, keeping it simple, there's two little videos, part 1 and part 2, and that's called simply the high-low target method. The second section is in a section called trade tips, and if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see 3 short videos there. Bank Trader Targets Part 1 and Part 2, and Treasure Chest of Trading Secrets. All 5 of these videos will only take you about 45 minutes to watch. They're very short, they're very simple. I have shared these ideas with Ed Karp, who has a lot of expertise in programming, and he's contacted Dean Malone with specific questions about the session times that he uses, and he has developed 2 chart templates with target highs and target lows. One is based on a 24-hour trading session, and the other is based on strictly a 9:30 open Eastern Time to a U.S. cash close. I have included in this document the ratio levels that I look at You'll see in the videos that Dean Malone uses a trend line, and rather than draw a trend line and try to figure out where the middle is and move it, I just converted it to a fib level with ratio levels that I've known and used for years and worked with. The basic levels are 100, 82, 618, 50, 382, 18, and 0%. So that I don't have to look at multiple drawings, I include upper and lower extensions in the same drawing. And I do this manually so that I can see levels for both the 24-hour session and the cash session at the same time on the same chart pattern. The extensions that I look at are 113, 127, 141.4, 1618, 200, and then the inverse of those numbers, minus 13, minus 27, minus 41.4, minus 618, and minus 100. I have very rarely seen an extension go beyond the 200 or minus 100% levels. If you're using Sierra charts, you can click the plus sign to add levels and then save that drawing as the default drawing. It will be tool configuration number 1. So what I do every day is I set up, or I have in one of my workbooks, just a plain 24-hour, 60-minute chart. And I manually draw that fib. Alt-7 is the keyboard shortcut, and that covers the high to low range. I do this every day at 4:15 before I shut down the platform for that day. And then after midnight, the next trading day, I move 50%, which is the midpoint, for the drawing so that it's placed on the midnight open. It's not the midnight high and it's not the midnight low, it's the midnight open. Now if you're using Ed's templates and you're using the chart with the trading hours for the cash market, that automatically shows for you. I also set up my charts with a horizontal line at time to show the midnight open as well as the cash open, as just a way to double check for correct positioning. And I also want to tell you, I have been watching this for more than 3.5 years. On most days, price will either return to the midnight open and or the cash open. And I've got some instructions here that are very simple about how to project these levels onto other charts in the same workbook and also different workbooks if you want to. Okay, that explains the document. I'll go back. Yesterday, we determined at 4:15 that the market high was 50.75. The market low for the day was 20.25. And you can see that that was formed at 3 a.m. in the morning, and then the high level that I used was formed at 4:15. It doesn't really matter what time you set the high and low as long as you are consistent. Some people will get very concerned about making sure their levels match up. I know people that use this drawing based on strictly the Globex open at 4:15. People like Ed who prefer the cash market open at 9:30. I use the midnight open, and all these times are Eastern times. So it doesn't really matter because the market is fractal, and you will see that the levels are respected. Once you watch this for a while, you will begin to get a feel, a better understanding for which level the market is going to go to. And you can certainly combine it with other methods. It works extremely well with Dave's moving average crossover method. I know people that have used it with market profile, volume profile, order flow. You can combine it with anything you want to, and it just helps give extra confirmation for when you feel like you're going to be in for an extended move. My personal trading preference is to make 1 or 2 trades a day with a very small number of contracts, very small initial risk, but have it capture the entire trend move. Haven't gotten to that point yet. I think it's an intestinal fortitude situation, but I have great entries and great targets. So moving along, I have this drawing from yesterday with the high from 50.75 to the low of 20.25. The midnight open, and I've got Sierra chart set with a vertical line at the midnight open, and the midnight open on my system is 51.50. Is that what you have, Dave?
I'd have to check my chart. Yeah. Night open 51.50.
Okay. To move this, once you get the drawing in place, all you do is right-click on the spine and then move drawing. So now 51.50 is going to be the 50% level, which if you're watching the trend line, the videos in Dean Malone's videos, you'll see that's the midpoint of the trend line. And of course I didn't do it. Okay, so now I'm set up. This is a 24-hour chart. I can double check that by going to chart settings, and you'll see that my start time is 00. My end time is 23:59:59. And this is from a workbook that I call APA. When I go to Ed's workbook that shows just his cash settings, you notice that it starts at 9:30, it runs to 16:15, and it uses the evening session from 16:30 to 9:30 the next morning. So it's slightly different, but it does give me both levels. If I go back to the 24-hour level, you will notice that Ed has very articulately programmed targets in for high and the low. And the targets are simply based on 0% and 100% as possible edges for trading action the next day. On the weekends, I use Friday's data projected after Sunday night, midnight for trading on Monday. But you can look and see when I go to the cash market, Ed's charts will give me after 9:30 when the market opens, it will give me the target high and target low based on yesterday's price action. Now, because I have manually drawn and then projected on his 9:30 cash market open charts, I can also see 24-hour charts. So you don't have to look at that much information. If that's too many lines for you and it makes the chart too confusing for you, then just use a cash session or just use a 24-hour session. Either way, whatever you feel comfortable with, but you'll see where it's already gone and you'll see how well the levels are respected. David, is that easily visible for people?
What's that again? To do what?
I just want to make sure that the font size is okay.
Yeah, it looks
that they
good.
can read everything.
If you could take a, I don't know if you could do a blank chart or redraw, but that'd be great just to show how you drew from 0 to 100% and then move it, because I know it was already there.
Okay, this was done yesterday with the high at 50.75. Let me see if I've got a blank chart. And you'll find that when you start looking at fib levels, I've got fib levels everywhere. I look at them on a daily, at 240, 130. Here again, that tells me where the San Francisco airport is, so I can get all those settings. But let me just open a new chart real quick. And I'll set this up the way that I would normally set up a new chart. I'll go to chart settings and you'll see the time displayed from midnight to 1 minute to 1 second before midnight. I'm going to look at candlestick bars and I'm going to the advanced setting 2 tab and I'm going to enable the vertical grid lines to show me each day, and I'm also going to change this to a 60-minute chart and click OK. So I can look at this and tell where it was. I know that yesterday's price action at 4:15, and here again you can run it until midnight to show your low and high within a 24-hour period, or you can just do it until 4:15. Alt-7 is a keyboard shortcut, and I go from high to low. At that time, 50.75. I've got those figures wrong. $50.75 to what, 20.25?
Yep.
So that's how I draw it. And I just am capturing the high to low of a range. In the videos, Dean Malone suggests whatever session you trade, if you trade the Asia session, the New York session, the London session, use that session, but it's the open of the session. I use the open at midnight because I think that's when the algos in New York reset.
So Pat, yesterday 1925 was the low. I'm just showing my chart for a second. Was the low before the U.S. session, and then we took the
Yes.
high from the U.S. session. So should you just take the low to the high or the high to the low of the U.S. session?
You can, and that's what Ed's charts do.
And how about you? What do you do? Because I see 1925, the low of your drawing there on my chart right here. That happened in pre-market, early morning. So
yes, that was 3 a.m. That's the London session, and because of the time that I get up and start looking at charts, I want to see that. I want to see where price has been. I am also fairly adept at Elliott Wave, a simplified version of Elliott Wave, understanding the impulse and corrective waves. And I want to get in at the beginning of a new trend. I don't want to get in at the end of the trend. I want to get in at the beginning of the new trend, because that gives me the greatest risk reward profile, either when wave 1 starts or wave 3 starts. And I also want to understand if we're in an ABC corrective pattern, because that will also give me an idea of, are we really going for the gusto here, or is this just a pullback?
So you take the low from the midnight open to the end of the U.S. session to the close or the high of the U.S. session, whereas somebody could just take the open to close of the U.S. session, or they could take the open to close of the London session, or whatever. That's your preference. Do any of those show any difference?
Not that I am aware of. Ed has run some statistics using 5 years worth of data on what he's found, and that's why he's developed 2 basic sets of charts, one involving the 24-hour period and one involving just the U.S. cash period. So I like to mix them with pre-market and U.S. cash session, because those are the hours that I trade. But you can see it doesn't really matter where you draw it. The market's fractal, so it's going to show up and respect a level regardless. And watch this. I'm going to move this. You just saw me draw this. Okay, let's just bring it back over here. And we'll take the low down here. We still have levels. You can draw this anywhere. And it really is a wonder, I guess, to most people when I say it doesn't really matter how you draw this drawing, the fibs. You can put it anywhere. You can put it from, for instance, this high to this low, or to this low. You'll still see these levels. You'll still see them. And it's because the market is fractal. It took me a long time to understand that. And that's why you can look at really large time frames like 130 minutes, 60 minutes, 240 minutes. I want to see more detail than the day chart typically provides. But if I show you this, this was drawn off a swing back, gosh, the 17th of September to the 29th of September. We're still honoring those levels. This drawing has not changed in months. So that's why I have a tendency to really look for the levels. You never really know which level it's going to run to, but you can look for acceptance and rejection at a particular level. For instance, right here, you can see with that wick, it was rejected at that level at 18%. But you can draw a fib off any of these swings, and I use the zigzag tool in Sierra to help quickly and easily visualize the swings. It's not always 100%, as we saw the other day. It was off a little bit, but it will give you the vast majority of the swings. The zigzag tool does have calculation modes. They have a mode 1, 2, and 3. And this one, I believe, is set on the mode 1. Mode 1 is what I use the most often. Occasionally, I will change it to a mode 2, but I never use a mode 3. And it just simply, this is set to a mode 2. It depends on how the price action is moving, and how it looks the best is how I set it. And you'll see when I change that back to mode 1, it shows me too many swings. So I'll change that back to a mode 2. That just demonstrates the tool to you a little bit. If you haven't played around with the zigzag tool, it's an excellent tool. It can move, and it will move. Just because it prints a number, 68.75, doesn't mean that it will not go beyond that, because it certainly can. But it's a good tool to use for me. Any questions? David, do you see any questions coming in?
There it is.
Can you save a copy of the charts? My charts or Ed's charts? If you're a new Sierra user and you just want to know how to save the charts, go to File, Save. One of the chart books you use as a starting point. Yes, I can. And I'm happy to do that. Ed's got, I believe, David, you have both of Ed's chart books on your share drive.
Yeah, I have the original one that he made, and then now this projection levels is another folder.
Okay. Yes, this is being recorded, and it does take a while to digest it, but I will encourage you to begin with Dean Malone's videos. They are very simple, and they'll make sense. The reason that Ed came up with 2 times 24-hour and cash only is that because he interpreted Dean's information as cash open based on the session times that he trades. I've watched this for 3.5 years on the midnight open, so that's why I use the 24-hour chart. And it's not that one session is better than the other. You will find heavier volume during the U.S. trading session, both the morning and the afternoon, than you will London Open and German Open and Asia and other session times like that. But it's just based on what time you tend to trade. And here again, it goes back to that 50,000 foot view. Where is the airport in San Francisco? Versus I'm going to fly from Atlanta to Birmingham to Charlotte to New York and take a zigzag approach. Can I expand on the meaning of a fractal market? My interpretation of fractal means that everything fits within something else. It's when you studied math in elementary school and you learned how you had sets and subsets, I think that's how it works. I'm not a professional trader, so I don't know what the professional definition is. You can probably go to Investopedia or Wikipedia and look up the definition of fractal. But to me, it means everything fits inside the next. And it's like the game that we were exposed to as children, where you have a box that fits inside a slightly larger box. that fits inside a slightly larger box and a larger box and a larger box. Does that make sense? Okay, great. Any other questions? This is a great clarification to get the bigger moves with David's system, with his moving average cross and everything else that he looks at. I don't look at any of the market profile stuff or the volume profile stuff or order flow. Those are the new kids on the block. The Fib levels have been around for a long, long time. My levels are slightly different than somebody else's levels. For instance, I use 18 and 82% rather than the 78.6 and the 23.4. But if it's a Fib level, I mean, I have another platform with an entirely different Fib drawing on it. I don't want to open that. Let's see. And you'll see that the levels are still respected. This is what I call my 45-55 Fib, and rather than looking at 50%, which by the way is not really a Fib number, I look at a 45% rejection and a 55% rejection, and you can still see that the levels are honored. And I hope that also helps give definition to a fractal market. Any other questions? Okay, David, I'll turn it back over to you. You can stop the recording.
Well, that was great, Pat. Thank you so much. Gosh, you did a professional webinar like I've done with Infinity Futures. Consider somewhere along the line you might want to present something like that, especially if this is your trading system. So that's cool, guys. Thank you to Pat for clarifying that. I know I still need to work on. I got to figure out what the deal is. I just saw you draw your lines. But for my charts, I don't know why I'm still getting the reversal of the numbers. So I will, we'll see how it works out today. I'll draw just like you had from upside to downside. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and I don't really care if you draw from top to bottom or bottom to top. Just understand that the ratio levels are inverse.
Right.
100% is the same as 0. 618 is the same as 382. It's just what makes sense to you and what you're comfortable with, because again, the market's fractal. You just got to develop a sense of comfort with the levels.
All right, cool. Thanks, Pat. We'll have the official recording here for the members, and then obviously people can ask in the room, and the goal is with your levels and Ed's day levels is to keep you in the trade that much longer. So
that's exactly right.
There we go.
That's exactly right.
All right, thanks, Pat.
And I use Skype a lot. If anybody has any questions, they can send me a contact request on Skype. And my Skype name is Russell, Russell, and then 4 digits, 1321.
Yeah, saw your
reference.
Very busy in the lower right-hand corner there.
I know. Too busy sometimes.
All right, thanks, Pat.
All right, thank you, everyone.